We shared a driveway peacefully until he demanded I stop parking there. "You're not family. You're clutter," he said. Then he built a fence that trapped my car in. I sat there all night thinking. The next day, I rented a Bulldozer and I live in Huntsville, Alabama. Not the deep countryside, but still quiet enough that most folks know each other by name or at least by car. My house is a 2-bedroom, built in the late 70s. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I got it after the divorce, mostly because it was affordable and came with a decent yard for my dog, Leo. What I didn't give much thought to was the driveway. It was a long strip of concrete that ran between my house and the one next door. One driveway, 2 houses. No dividing line. Just understood space. My realtor said it was shared, and when I moved in, Frank, the guy next door, never made it an issue. Frank was probably in his late 60s when I moved in. Retired, quiet, did most of his talking through nods and grunts. We never really got close, but we were fine. I kept my side clear. He kept his side clear. That was enough. Then his son Barry moved in. I didn't ask why. None of my business. I just saw a U-Haul one Saturday morning and a guy with a ponytail and cargo shorts yelling at movers about scratches on a bookshelf. From the moment he arrived, the vibe changed. He was loud, territorial, and constantly outside like he was looking for something to criticize. First week, I was carrying groceries from my car, and Barry walks up with this smirk. "You know this isn't your driveway, right?" he says. I honestly thought he was joking. I laughed a little. "Suddy? This land belongs to my dad. This driveway? It's not split down the middle like you think." I just said, "We've both been using it. It's worked fine." He shrugged. "Yeah, well, that was before. It's different now." I didn't respond, just kept unloading bags. I figured maybe he was just having a bad day or didn't want to live back with his dad and was taking it out on me. But he kept going. If I parked even 2 inches over, he'd come out and stare at my car. Not say anything. Just watch. Another time, Leo barked while he was grilling, and he muttered something about worthless mutts and people who shouldn't be allowed to have pets. Still, I avoided confrontation. It's just not who I am. I figured Frank would talk to him. Maybe it'd pass. But it didn't. One Thursday evening, I came home around 6 p.m. Same routine, pulled into my usual spot on the right side of the driveway, where I'd always parked. Got out, walked Leo, then went inside. When I came out the next morning to leave for work, there was a wooden fence right down the center of the driveway. At first, I didn't even understand what I was looking at. I stood there, coffee in hand, just blinking. It wasn't a short fence. It was tall. Rough wood, unfinished, nailed in hard. His side of the driveway was open.
Mine, blocked.
My car was stuck between the new fence and the wall of my house. There was no way out. I literally couldn't back out. I couldn't even open my passenger side door all the way. I stood there, stunned. After a few minutes, Frank came out, saw me, gave a small wave like nothing was wrong. Then Barry stepped out behind him, grinning. "Looks like you'll need to make other arrangements," he said, sipping coffee. "You can't just build a fence trapping in my car." He shrugged. "It's on our property. You want it moved, talk to a lawyer." I called the police. They came, took a look, and said it was a civil matter. Couldn't do anything. I asked Frank to reconsider. He didn't say a word. Just walked inside. Barry stood there, smiling the whole time. I didn't sleep much that night. I went out to my car, sat in it with the door barely open. It was silent, but I couldn't think. I just kept running through all the small moments that led to this. The fake smiles. The just kidding comments. The way Barry kept pushing, testing, waiting for me to react. I thought about going the legal route. Filing a complaint. Paying a lawyer. But then I remembered something Barry said. Call a lawyer. See how far that gets you. He wanted me stuck. Helpless. Embarrassed. So the next morning I took a personal day off work. Called a local rental yard. Asked if they had small construction equipment.
They did.
By noon, I was in a rental Bulldozer, idling at the foot of the driveway. Now, let's continue. The bulldozer wasn't huge, just big enough to do what I needed. I didn't want to destroy the neighborhood, just make a point. The rental guy gave me a once-over when I signed the paperwork. You ever use one of these? I nodded. My uncle had a farm when I was younger. Spent a few summers there. I wasn't an expert, but I knew how to move forward and knock stuff down. I drove it back to my street slow. People stared. I didn't care. I parked it right in front of my driveway and climbed down. Barry was already outside, phone in hand. What the hell do you think you're doing? I looked at him, calm as I could. Fixing a mistake. You touched that fence, I swear to God. I didn't wait for him to finish. I climbed back in and turned the machine toward the fence. Took a deep breath. Then I hit the throttle. The wood snapped easier than I expected. The post split right out of the ground. In seconds, half the fence was down. Barry was yelling now, screaming something about police and lawyers. I kept going. It felt good. Not crazy good. Not revenge movie good. Just right. I'd been boxed in, literally, and now I was just undoing it. When the last piece fell, I shut the engine off and climbed down again. Barry was red in the face. You're paying for that, he shouted. No, I said. I'm not. He stormed back inside. A few minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up. Same officers from before. One of them raised his eyebrows at the bulldozer. You really went for it, huh? He said. I explained what happened. Showed them the photos I'd taken of the fence and how my car had been trapped. Told them I wasn't trying to escalate, just trying to get to work. Barry came out, furious, waving his phone, trying to show video. The officer looked at it, then back at me. You sure you didn't damage any of his property? Just the fence. The officer looked at Barry. Was the fence on a side of the driveway? Barry paused. That silence gave everything away. The cop sighed. Looks like you two need to work this out in civil court. We're not pressing anything today. They left. Barry stood in the yard, shaking, fists clenched. Frank stayed inside. But it wasn't over. That night, someone slashed my tires. All 4. Leo barked like crazy around 2 a.m., but I didn't see anyone. I reported it, but there were no cameras, no witnesses. I knew it was him. The next morning, I walked next door and rang the bell. Frank opened it slowly. I need to talk, I said. He stepped aside. Barry was in the living room, acting like nothing happened. Sitting on the couch, drinking coffee, legs crossed. He looked up at me like I was interrupting something. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said one thing. You come near my car again, or my dog, and I'll file a restraining order. He laughed. You don't have proof. Frank cleared his throat. Barry stopped laughing. Looked at his dad. You know something? I asked. Frank looked between us. Then he looked down. He asked me to help him pay for the fence, he said quietly. I told him not to put it up. He did it anyway. Barry stood up. Dad. But Frank kept going. You never asked. You just built it. I didn't agree to this mess. I left without another word. I thought maybe that would settle it. But a week later, I noticed something new. Someone had filed a zoning complaint with the city. About me. About my fence damage, my dog barking, my driveway parking, even the small shed I built in my backyard. Each one required a visit. An inspection. A notice on my door. He wasn't done. I started getting letters. Not just from the city, those I expected after the zoning complaints, but from an anonymous neighbor. Typed and signed notes slipped into my mailbox. No envelope. Just folded printer paper. You don't belong here. Take your mutt and go. Some of us take pride in this neighborhood. They weren't threatening exactly, but they were nasty. Cowardly. And whoever wrote them didn't even bother to disguise the language. It read like Barry's voice. I knew it was him. I reported them anyway. The post office shrugged. Said unless it had a return address and came through the postal system, there wasn't much they could do.
Fine.
I started documenting everything. Photos, timestamps, video. I installed a camera on my garage facing the driveway, and another pointed toward the side gate where Leo usually went out. I made sure they were legal, checked the angles, made sure I wasn't filming through anyone's windows. I wanted proof. That same week, Leo got sick. Real sick. Vomiting, shaking, wouldn't eat. I rushed him to the vet and spent the night in my truck outside the emergency clinic waiting to hear back. They said he'd ingested something toxic. Probably rat poison. They pumped his stomach. Put him on fluids.
He survived.
Barely. I asked if it could have been an accident. They said it was possible, but they'd seen enough to know when it wasn't. I lost it. The next morning, I marched over and pounded on Frank's door. Barry opened it, smirking. "You poisoned my dog?" I asked. He looked me dead in the eye. "Got proof." I stepped closer. "If I find out you touched him," Frank interrupted. "Stop." He looked at Barry. "Did you do it?" Barry scoffed. "You think I'd waste poison on that mutt?" Frank didn't say anything. I backed off. Told him this was his warning. 3 nights later, my shed caught fire. The fire department said it was probably electrical. Maybe. But I didn't believe that for a second. I had no power running to the shed. No outlets. Nothing but some tools, lawn gear, and a small workbench. Nothing that could spark. No one could prove arson. But I didn't need to be convinced anymore. Barry wanted me out, and he was willing to go low to make it happen. So, I started thinking differently. If I couldn't beat him with reason or threats, I'd beat him the way he never saw coming. I started digging through public records. I found out Frank had refinanced his house 2 years earlier. He was behind on property taxes by 3 months. The house wasn't even in Barry's name. Not even partially. And the driveway? Technically, half of it was an access easement that crossed into my deed. The previous owner had never enforced it, but it was there. In writing. Recorded. I hired a lawyer. Not to sue.
To make moves.
We filed to formalize the easement and resurvey the property line. I filed a cease and desist for harassment. I submitted my camera footage to the city and sent a notice through my attorney to Frank and Barry detailing all the times their fence violated the shared space agreement. It took a few weeks. Maybe a month. But that's when something broke. Barry got served. I watched from my window as a process server handed him the thick envelope. He ripped it open right there on the lawn and started shouting. Frank came out and read it. His face went pale. They were being sued for damages. Harassment. Property obstruction. I wasn't bluffing anymore. The next morning, I found a letter taped to my door. It was handwritten this time. Sloppy, angry handwriting. "You think you won, but I haven't even started." No name.
No signature.
Just one final line at the bottom. "Let's see what happens when the power goes out."
I didn't sleep that night.
I turned on every outside light, made sure my cameras were rolling. Even stayed up in the living room with the TV on low, just waiting. Nothing happened. But I knew that letter wasn't just talk. Next morning, I went out to check the breaker box. Everything looked fine. But around noon, while I was in the middle of a Zoom call for work, my lights flickered. Then the screen went black. Router down.
Power gone.
I checked the breakers again. Nothing was tripped. Then I noticed the padlock on the side gate had been cut. Not broken, cut clean through. Like someone used bolt cutters. The power company said there'd been no outage on their end. Nothing scheduled.
No explanation.
I called the police again, gave them the note, and showed them the broken lock. This time they took it a little more seriously. The pattern was starting to build. They agreed to file a report and suggested I consider a restraining order again. I did. The next day, I went to the courthouse and filed paperwork against Barry. The woman at the front desk looked tired, like she'd heard 100 stories like mine. But when I handed over the photos, the vet report, and the cut lock, her tone changed. "You did everything right," she said. "But doing everything right doesn't always fix things." About a week after I filed, Barry stopped showing up on the front lawn. No yelling, no glares. Nothing. It was quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe Frank finally had enough and kicked him out. Maybe the lawsuit scared them. For a few days, I actually felt relief. I even let Leo out without checking the cameras first. Then I found the brick. It was early, just before dawn. I stepped outside to take Leo on his walk, and there it was, sitting on the hood of my car. A plain red brick. Nothing on it. Just placed there. I checked the footage. 1:42 a.m. A figure in a hoodie approached from the street, not from Frank's house. Walked up, put the brick down gently, then walked off. Not rushed. Not nervous. Like it was a message. But they never looked up. Never showed their face. When I showed the video to the cops, they said it could have been anyone. No real crime committed. Just suspicious activity. I knew what it was. Barry was hiding now, getting smarter. Using someone else. Or maybe doing it himself with more care. I bought motion lights. Upgraded my locks. I installed more cameras. Then I made one more call. Not to the police. To a local news station. I told them everything. The fence. The fire. The poison dog. The harassment. I showed them the property survey, the court filings, even the brick footage. They sent a reporter. She knocked on Frank's door. He didn't answer. Barry wasn't seen that day. The story aired 2 nights later. Short segment. Nothing flashy. Just a soft-voiced woman describing a neighbor feud that had gotten way out of hand. She used my name. Blurred Leo's face. They didn't blur Barry's. 3 days later, I got a call from Frank. Can we talk? He came over alone. Looked old. Tired. Like he hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't know it got this bad, he said.
He's not right.
He's angry. Lost. I nodded but didn't say anything. He's gone now. I told him to go. You sure? I asked. He nodded. Took his things and left this morning. I didn't thank him. I just closed the door. But that night, I found a second brick. This one smashed my mailbox. No note. No camera caught it. Nothing to trace. Just the sound of glass crunching beneath my feet at 6 a.m. when I stepped outside. And when I looked down the street, Frank's porch light was off. His windows dark. And Barry's car was gone. But I didn't believe for a second that he was. I replaced the mailbox the next morning. Didn't even bother filing another report. What was the point? The cops would come, take photos, and say the same thing. Without a witness, we can't do much. I started changing my routine. Different times for dog walks. Different grocery stores. I even took time off work to install a security gate at the head of my driveway, just a manual one, but enough to keep a car or person from easily walking in at night. For a while, things went quiet again. Maybe 2 weeks. I started to think maybe he had really left. Maybe Frank was telling the truth. Then one night, I came home late from my brother's place across town. Pulled into the driveway, got out, opened the gate, parked the car. Leo jumped down from the passenger seat and froze. I followed his eyes. There was something tucked under my porch steps, just barely sticking out. A flat rectangle. I thought it was a package at first. I walked over and reached down. It was a photo. An old one. Me and my ex-wife. From years ago. At the beach. She was laughing, holding Leo when he was just a puppy. I hadn't seen that picture in over a decade. I didn't even remember owning a copy. I flipped it over. One word was written on the back, in thick black marker. Stay lonely. That broke something in me. This wasn't just about the driveway anymore. This wasn't about property lines, fences, or barking dogs.
This was personal now.
Deeply personal. Barry had gotten into my past. Dug through something. Or someone. Maybe he found old photos in the trash. Maybe he found my ex on social media. Maybe worse. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up watching the porch. Watching the street. Watching everything. At one point, I opened my laptop and started searching. Background checks. Public records. Anything I could find on Barry. And I did. Turns out Barry had a sealed record in Florida from 2012. Something serious, domestic. No charges stuck, but the arrest was there. He'd moved around a lot. Different cities. Short leases. Eviction in Georgia. Restraining order filed in Louisiana by a woman whose name I didn't recognize. He was a drifter. A quiet wrecking ball. And now he'd landed next door to me. I didn't wait for the next brick, or photo, or broken window. The next day, I filed a full civil protection order. I went all in. I hired a lawyer again, same one as before. We compiled everything. Each note, each threat, the vet bill, the mailbox, the porch photo, the sealed record. We built a folder thick enough to break a table. And this time the court took it. The judge approved a temporary protection order against Barry. They scheduled a hearing for the permanent one. The sheriff delivered the papers to Frank's house. That was the last time anyone saw Barry. He didn't show up at court, didn't file a response, just vanished. The judge approved the order by default. Barry was officially banned from coming within 300 feet of me, my house, my dog, my car, even my workplace. But it didn't feel like a win. Because deep down I knew something. People like Barry don't just go away. They wait. They watch. They wait for your guard to drop. So now I don't leave without checking every camera. I don't sleep without a light on. I don't take Leo outside without scanning the yard first. It's been months. And I still keep finding footprints near the gate in the mornings. Some mornings I wake up early just to check if the gate's still locked. Not because I think something's wrong, but because I know one day it might not be. And when that day comes, I don't think it'll be loud. I think it'll be quiet. Like everything else he did.